Cool. So Nick, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to Human Window. So you're one of the world's leading experts in sleep. You've worked with some of the biggest names in sport to help athletes improve their recovery and their sleep. And then you first published your book, Sleep, in 2016. You're also the founder of Sport Sleep Coach, where you provide coaching and advice on people on how to improve their sleep and recovery. But for anyone who's just watching and tuning into this right now, could you give it kind of a brief summary of your story and how you got to this point?
A brief one. I was involved with the sleep industry purely by accident. Loved sport as a teenager, tried to get into it, but that path moved me into the sleep industry. I was an international sales and marketing director for a big company called Slumberland. We were making comfort products. I'd researched sleep all around the world as a leading brand, trying to correlate the two to how important it was. Spent quite a lot of time with professors of sleep and looking at that whole area, and basically came to a particular point in my life where, just taking sleep for granted was something I felt like I might as well go off and do something else because I'm not able to change their perception. I got involved with elite sport, which happened to be a football club called Manchester United in Oldham, Manchester, which was close to my office. We started some dialogue. That turned into starting to do some things from all of my experience of trying to maybe redefine it, for the world of football. And some 22 years later, I'm still here. We work with elite athletes, male, female, all across the globe, at all sort of different demographics and age groups. So elite sport just really means somebody who's in the profession of it. And sleep has become a big subject, simply because, we're just in a new era where new challenges and new demands. I think we're all learning. We're in some sort of social experiment, as somebody mentioned the other day. There's lots of fear factors going on of, how we're suffering from a lack of education and awareness about sleep. So I think everything I do in elite sport just translates to absolutely anybody. And as you mentioned before, I was asked to write a book, which I was a little bit scared about doing for all sorts of reasons. But it's in 14 languages around the world, so it's certainly not centric to any particular population or group. And it's exposed me to anything from nurses to surgeons to pilots to GPs to menopausal women to students to whatever it is. Have been coming on trying to get a little bit of a better approach of how they get from A to B in the modern world.
Sure, great. Thanks a lot. And so as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to really hone in on blue light as an issue in this kind of day and age in which we live. Could you just give us a kind of an explanation as to the roles that blue and red light play in the human circadian rhythm or body clock?
I've just recently been coaching some under 15s and under 12s and at a Premiership football club, and they get, that particular generation does get hammered with this blue light's bad for you and will keep you awake. And I think it's about the whole context of trying to get younger people to go to sleep because they don't want to. It's a waste of time. They're not doing anything. So it's kind of like we keep cropping up with little things, like I say in this social experiment. And what I try to do is say, okay, we're now giving this advice about how bad blue light is. Well, hang on a minute. What do you know about light? Because blue light's not bad. Light is not bad. It's just when you get it and why. And the first thing you have to understand, it's the sort of scientific word is circadian rhythms. Now, the sun goes around our planet every day. We cannot change that. It's a whole process of light and dark and temperature shifts. It's a rhythm that goes on every day, depending on where you are on the planet. We are human beings with brains and bodily functions that are completely synchronized to that process. That's not changed. So whilst everything else changes around us, that process has always been in place. So principally, as human beings living outside, we would have been driven by that light-dark temperature shift. And the There's a little bit of blue light, the energy light, in daylight. There's also blue light hopping around in artificial lights, and obviously now the focus is on technology. But what I try to do is to emphasize that it's really important as a human being, an athlete or anybody, is to make sure that you're exposed to daylight at the start of your day. Because without that, you don't create all the bodily functions, and this is about producing serotonin in your brain that tells you to unsuppress everything and become active, appetite, mood, motivation, alertness. And as we all know, the sun rises, gets to midday where it's at its strongest, and then starts to diminish towards sunset. So really what you want every day is around 12 hours of daylight. You want about 4 hours of diminished light and 8 hours in dark. Now, how that pans out in your 24 hours is something to define, but that's principally how your 24 hours looks. So the first thing everybody should understand is that in the first daylight, really critical to get you going, particularly for people who, because we have this little thing called a chronotype, where we're larks or owls, as you call it, or PMers or AMers, and that's just a little genetic twist that creates serotonin quicker in an AMer than it does in a PMer. So the AMers like to get going, the PMers are a little bit sort of 2 hours behind that process. So those sort of come together. So what you're always trying to do is to make sure, if you live in part of the world where we also have daylight saving time, which is where we shift the clocks in winter, our relationship with light changes again. That's why we get seasonal affective disorder and all this sort of stuff. And because we move down to maybe 8 hours of daylight, 8 hours of diminished light, and 8 hours of dark. So there's quite a significant shift. So the challenge is, throughout any particular year and through the seasons, is to make sure that your exposure to light is balanced and you don't get too much of one and too little of the other. So that's the first bit. So when we start looking in the evenings, if we've not got a balanced approach to the amount of light during the day, then we're not performing at our best, mood, motivation, and things like that. So we can do something about that by increasing blue light, because we might spend too much time indoors and not outdoors, that sort of process. But when we get towards the back end quarter of the 24 hours, as I call it, when we're in that evening process, moving towards nocturnal sleep, it's really important to remember that that is about diminished light. So you can still be active and doing things, but you want to be protecting that you're not overloading with serotonin, which is triggered by light and the blue light, but it's also, you're getting a nice balance. So you're moving towards what we call the melatonin area, where the melatonin is taking over from serotonin and telling the body to suppress everything and move you down towards a place where you can go to sleep. So the big thing about blue light and technology is that the blue light is quite focused inside a small space. So whether it's your device or a desktop or laptop, is what you're doing is you're quite focused on it. Now that does a number of things because it intensifies the light. You're much closer to it. So when you're outside, it's not the same. So when you're intensified that, you can get like headaches, migraines, you can trigger eyeballs swelling, you can get quite intense about it, so it makes it very uncomfortable. But we started using, glasses to try and protect that. But to be honest with you, you can get shields on all your devices now, just like you've got any protective device. So you can the blue light out very, very easily, you don't have to worry about it. So wearing glasses or anything like that can be beneficial, but principally you can just remove it. So I can still be active with my technology, but I've taken the blue light out of the system, whether it's through glasses or a shield on the device. The other thing, as I'm standing here, looking at you, is also just how close you are to these things, So just by going back maybe a few millimeters, the impact can be significantly dropped. So I think what we're talking about with blue light is just understanding that you do want to use it throughout any 24 hours to be at your best in the serotonin mode. But then you also want to make sure you don't overload it, like in the summer where we've got 16 hours worth of daylight. But we also might need to increase it in the winter months because it's not around us so much. And the light outside is so much stronger than any light inside. And so rather than just focusing on blue light is bad, excessive amounts, yes. In concentrated areas, yes. If you don't have an understanding, then you can get out of sync with it. But if you've got a little bit of a better understanding of when you should use it and why, how you can diminish it. You mentioned red light, yellow light, amber light. None of those lights have the blue light spectrum. So you could, like candle light, so you can still be active. A lot of artificial lights in your home have got very low levels of blue light, if none at all, and have very little effect on the process. So I think once you've got that nice, better understanding, is just trying to block blue light on devices before you go to sleep is really just a last-ditch attempt to try and rectify something that should have been going on from the point of wake. And the one thing that we start that process off, I don't know whether you can see it very well, but it's a little light meter.
Yeah.
And you download it onto your device. So it's measuring light from the camera on my phone. And what it does is start a little bit of a process of strength of light. And where I'm standing right now, in my kitchen right next to a window, it's measuring 151 lux, which is the way light is measured. If I take it to the window, it's now gone up to 3,000 lux. I've only just extended my arm, okay? I've just extended my arm. If I just open my back door here, you can see a bit of light coming in. If I just put it outside, I've still only just stretched my arm, yeah? It's now 70,000.
Wow, okay.
Now, you don't have to get too deep and meaningful about, wow, is that really working? Is that device really? As humans, right out there, as we used to live outside, nothing much has changed. Our brains, from the point at the start of the day, would be 100,000 lux. We're moving around, so the average would be maybe 10 or 20,000 lux because we've got trees and clouds and things. So as we're moving around, we're not getting fully intensified. We're looking down, we're looking up. So it's a kind of a balance, but that's what's outside. Inside, I'm hardly exposed to 200 lux, right? So that relationship with somebody who may spend a lot of time inside, in their home, in their cars, trains, going into offices, schools, your bright kitchen there. So if you're in a diminished light most of the day, you're still active and doing things, but it's at 200, 300 lux at best. Then when you start getting towards the back end of your day and you're still looking at devices and computers in an intensified blue light way, then they can have a far more greater effect on you than if you've got a nice balanced approach. Okay? So when you wake up in the morning, for example, I'm a morning chronotype, I'm an AMer, I love the mornings. I wake up 6:30, I'm ready to go and starving. So only up until a certain point of the year will I shut my curtains, because the sun rises, say 5 o'clock, 5:15, that rises, it puts sun into my bedroom, releases serotonin, I'm ready to go. So I only shut the curtains when the sun is rising before 5 o'clock. Now, if you're a PMer, you don't want to be affected by sunrise, so you keep the curtains shut. And so waking in dark is not natural to us. So if I'm shutting the curtains, I put a lamp in my bedroom that replicates sunrise and puts 10,000 lux worth of daylight in my bedroom to wake me up. I open the curtains, it's dark. I open the curtains, it's light. So this business, as briefly as I possibly can, is blue light is not bad. it's fundamental to make you go and do stuff. And throughout the day, you want to keep those levels up, depending on where you are and everything else. And just take the emphasis to right. We don't want a generation of people thinking that blue light is bad for us. It's just our lack of knowledge that that's what's being picked up, because sleep tends to be at this moment in time, because it's been so uninvested to the levels of nutrition and exercise like we've been doing to death, and all other areas, is there's a lot of fear factors coming out around sleep, which is not based on good education right the way through schooling or parents or colleagues or friends. So you always have to put it in context, and you can do something about it straight away. But I would much rather think of trying to get a better approach from the moment you wake throughout your day, using little tools to make sure that happens. We can't all be outside, of course we can't, but we should know how much we're not exposed to light, to see if we can increase it with lamps, with this, with that, or turning right or turning left. So if I want to go back to my office, I can go that way in the house, it's 200 lux. Or I can go that way, round to the front door and upstairs to my office. So as soon as I step out there, now it's 70,000. So you kind of sort of get a relationship with this balance. And that's really where I come from with athletes and anybody, is to try and put that in that context.
Sure, yeah. So there's so much great information in there. So it's really about having a better relationship with light, essentially, and understanding the fundamentals about how, as human beings, we evolved mainly outdoors, and our circadian rhythm is perfectly tied to the day and night cycle. And then just doing things in your daily life to kind of, I guess, reconnect as much as possible and get as much natural light as possible to that rhythm, even though, as you say, it's not going to be possible at all times. Yeah, and so like you say, blue light as well is important in the daytime because it wakes us up, essentially, doesn't it? It's just a question of,
well, it's the energy wave of the spectrum. So but it's I think the sort of area where we've all got little buttons where we can reduce the light on devices. There's apps and all sorts of things you can add to block.
I've got a pair of blue blocking glasses as well. Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I wear glasses, right? And a lot of people like to wear glasses that don't have lenses in them from a fashion perspective. So some people will wear the glasses. But you also have to accept that during the course of the day, that's good to balance maybe too much light, to have a nice balance, to protect yourself as well because you're looking at something. So they're a good tool. But not everybody wants to wear glasses in an office where they don't normally wear glasses, particularly for certain demographics. So it's kind of, you can't really just put those glasses on, can you, an hour before you go to sleep, and you're still looking at your device. The information overload's still happening, right? That's going to keep your brain going when you try to. So it's a combination of like, yeah. But you can't just put those. Are those Swannies?
They're not. They're a company. They're blue blocks. Blocks. Yeah.
You can't sort of. I mean, you've got them there right now, but you can't just pop them on an hour before you go to bed. I'm more interested in what are you doing on this device in the last few hours. It could be good stuff. Mindfulness, meditation, sound, sensories, things calm, listening to music, doing things like. So it's all about a balance of what that part of your day, why you're doing it, and just is it actually having any impact on your light exposure, because you should. So you could just have a little red bulb, a candle, or something, as well as anything else. But that's really where we are redefining this all the time and learning. So sometimes the fear factor, I was going to get, I think I was going to get ear cancer when I first had a phone back in the late 90s, right? But it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's still a bit early. But I think nobody's arguing about the power of blue light. But once you know a little bit more about it and how to use it, it's not a problem, and it's not dangerous, and it's not going to kill you, and it won't keep you awake at night unless you haven't got any screen protectors, you haven't got any understanding about it.
Sure, yeah. So it's about much more of a holistic approach. I mean, the blue light is just one aspect of it. It's not just the only thing. So, for example, if you're watching, a scary film before bed, that's probably not ideal. Or scrolling through social media. So it's about having a real understanding.
While you're drinking a can of Monster and chomping on a donut, and you're playing a game with your mates all around the world, or you're getting intimidated because everybody else online is fantastic and having a great time, and you're not. So it's kind of, the blue light is not protecting yourself from blue light is not the answer. Being able to go to sleep the last thing at night, it's not. A lot of things move very quickly, don't they? So one thing we say, oh God, these things have got blue light in. Oh God, we're looking at them too much. Oh my God, the blue light, looking at it too much will do this, and it will do that. Yeah, so we create a screen. Then we create that. Now it's gone. Now you're focusing on, wow, use it. Because as human beings, if we're synchronized with this light dark temperature thing, somebody's recovery program and their whole attitude to life, they'll say to me, it was like a paradigm shift in my everyday approach when I suddenly realized that my brain was actually synchronized to that sun going around the planet, and nothing's going to change that, only my ability to be as far away from it as I possibly can, which is not a good place to go.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's really, really great advice. So you touched on briefly about some of the things you do, like you try and expose yourself to sunlight, obviously early in the morning. What kind of tips would you give to someone? So is your advice to go and as soon as you wake up, go and kind of expose yourself to, actual daylight outdoors? And is it important? So you've got to basically see the light through your eye, I'm assuming. So if you're looking through glass, it might not be quite as good.
Yeah, I think with light outside, it's much, much stronger in the 100,000 lux area. But whilst we're just moving around and looking up and looking down and looking around and being active, we get this sort of balance. So like I said, it's normally, if you're outside all the time, it's normally sort of 10, 20,000 lux, which you're being impacted from as you're doing it. So most of the light therapy lamps will emit 10,000 lux. Okay, so if you want to get that shift, so there's nothing in your kitchen that's producing that level of light, right? Even the lamps and everything, they're much, much, much lower. So I took a bunch of athletes, and instead of sleeping in a hotel, we slept outside like camping. Okay, and the concept is not everybody goes camping, not everybody likes going camping, but they all understand the principles. Is that if I go away with a group of people, like a family or kids or friends, we go outside, we're only protected from the outside world by some little bit of plastic or polythene, right? So there's no security, no nothing. We're outside, we tend to eat breakfast well, start the day, be active, have lunch, enjoy the evenings, we sleep well, we seem to have a really nice time together. Why? When there's a lot of things missing. It's simply because we're with that circadian rhythm. It's having an impact on how we feel, how we're processing information. We're not sleeping on some fancy mattress, are we? Or some fancy pillow in a fancy bedroom with air conditioning and security and locks on the windows. We haven't got any of those things. So it's amazing. So I will do that because what happens is you can't protect them from the sunrise. The tent doesn't do it, right? So immediately they get impacted and suddenly they realize, oh my God, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I never get up at that time. You go, well, what are you doing awake now? There's no alarm. Kind of that whilst we're inside and in these places, like we said, like a dawn wake simulator can be used and it's just by your bed. And it recreates that in a dark room with blackout curtains. You might live in the city, in aggressive areas, non-aggressive areas. But like I said before, most of the time is if I know when the sun's rising, Make it part of your thing. What time is the sun rising next week? You know? And if it's rising at 5 o'clock and you normally get up at 6, then open those curtains up and let it in. But then your bedroom's facing this way and not that way. So it's rising on the other side, so you're not getting it. So the light therapy tool gives you an opportunity wherever you are, whatever environment you're in, whatever part of the season, is if you can't get the natural stuff, then you can replicate it. You can have something in your kitchen while you're making breakfast and stuff, because all your other lights are not doing that. They can just sit there 15 minutes. That's the way you kind of use it, is you use these little for little short periods. Right? Just pop it on for 10 minutes. Because when you're outside, you're not fully exposed to 100,000 all the time. So every now and again, it's by your desk, it's by your computer. You've got some earbuds on there, you're listening. Well, I've got some earbuds that actually puts daylight in through my ear canal, into my brain, and creates the same thing, but it looks just exactly as you do now. And I'm just getting a little hit because today I wasn't able to get outside. I woke up in the dark inside, so I had that lamp. Then during the course of the morning, I just got, I'll have 15 minutes and just do it that way. And even if I'm riding my bike, I can pop it on for 15 minutes. It's a very non-intrusive way. So sometimes you can get the light in this way from a lamp through the eyelids, but also there are scientists around, particularly in Finland, have a very strong relationship with light, where we're actually using the ear canal to project the light to the light receptors and trigger the pineal gland to have a little boost of serotonin, or just to keep the balance between serotonin and melatonin right, to make sure it's up and down. So you would be quite surprised that some people might have lamps by their beds or lamps by their desks and everything else, but a lot of my athletes will walk around with those things, and you think they're listening to something, but actually they're just getting a daylight recharge.
Very cool, and that's the human charger, isn't it? Yeah. Very cool. Cool, and so I wanted to also just briefly touch upon. So in your book, you talk about how ideally the bedroom is a kind of place where only sleeping occurs. You've got kind of no other distractions, like blacked out, quiet, cool, ideally. I wondered also if you could just let me know whether when you're consulting with athletes or your clients, do you advise them to always kind of set up their bedroom in that manner and avoid using things like Wi-Fi signals, like turning off Wi-Fi signals at night and things like that?
I think there's two sides to that. One is it's very rare that you ever walk out of your home onto an athletic playing field, a football pitch, an Olympic stadium. It always means travel. So basically, you're always going to be sleeping in different environments. With professional mountaineers, they're hanging off the side of a cliff in a sack on a hook, right? So they leave their homes, but they have to sleep up there, right? So the first concept is you can sleep anywhere on anything, anyway, and any time. You're a human being, right? So you can make things work. You can sleep on the floor. You can sleep over there on a train, a plane, on the sofa, on somebody else's bed, in a hotel, right? You can not sleep for quite a long time. You know, there's lots of things we're adapting to all the time. So when the emphasis comes to this bedroom, going back to the tent, I say to the athlete, so you've just got a little bit of plastic around you, a little something comfy on the floor. You're not protected from the circadian rhythms. There's no place to put a flat screen. You know, they've probably got 5G out there now, but you know, let's put things in context. At least you're connected, but you haven't got a TV. So if you go into your bedroom, think of it like that. Strip everything out mentally, and then put back what is about mental and physical recovery for you as a human being. Of course, the room has to be multitasking. It has to be multifunctional. It's a place to do homework. It's a place to work. It's a place to chill out. It's a place to have sex with your partners. It's a place to to have Sunday lions and duvet days and get away from the world and do stuff that you wouldn't do anywhere else because it's private to you. Of course it is. Read books, all sorts of stuff. But if you principally go, this is a recovery room. I spend 8 hours in it for something. That's a long time. Maybe 10 hours with an hour before, an hour and after. It's a long time of my day. So what is it? Is it a lounge? Is it a workspace? Or do I go to recover? And when you think of it, you sort of go, okay, is there anything I can do maybe to put that somewhere else rather than in there? Or maybe that I could improve it. So even like a TV on the wall, it's got a little standby light on it, and we don't get up to switch TVs off anymore. We just do it with our, device. But put a little bit of black tape over the light, so you can still use the device, but that little laser is just going Nick all night long. So with the curtains, with the blinds, are you trying to protect yourself from the light or expose yourself to it? Well, if you're trying to protect it from it, make sure you're protected. Don't leave little gaps of it wandering through and under the door and creeping through there, because you're not doing neither or, right? It's like either you open or you're not. And with the products that you choose to sleep on, because most people get to a certain point, they only buy a mattress or a bed when they need one, not want one, need one, So when they need one, they get quite intense about it. It's got to sort my back out. It's got to last forever. It's got to give me a perfect night's sleep. I want a 365 night trial because I might not like it. It's got to be comfortable. It's got to be beautiful. It's got to help me sleep. And you go, oh, hang on. What have you been sleeping on up until this point? You never give a damn about it. Now you've got to buy one. Wow. So what are you taking to the tent? Is this little inflatable thing? Or is it a little bit of roll-up foam? Okay. So what are you putting in your bedroom? Oh, I've got this big fat mattress full of layers and layers and layers of springs and foam. Comes in a box, all rolled up. It's fantastic, and it's going to give me an amazing night's sleep. Oh, yeah. You're not taking that camping, are you? No. Are you taking that to Tokyo? No. Are you taking that to your friend's house? No. So why is this thing going to be so wonderful? Did it have your name on it? No. Well, a little bit of foam and a blow-up thing going camping, you're not really that fussed. It's just a surface to be comfortable on, isn't it? So it doesn't have to be for you, right? But that mattress you're spending all your time on in your house, was it designed for somebody 200 kilograms? With 3 arms, 4 legs, and 2 arms? I don't know. It's just a mattress for absolutely everybody on the planet. So why have you spent so much money on it? Why are you putting so much emphasis on it? So you sort of try to come out of your room and go, yeah, that's got to go back in, but could I make it have less impact? That's got to go back in, but could I, yeah. And basically, I'm also putting that in there, which is asking too much. So maybe I could change 1 or 2 things. So that's the way we sort of look at it, is to, everybody has to live in all sorts of different types of places. So there's no sort of specific criteria. Cities, people sharing homes, we don't have this sort of idyllic thing. We have to try and sleep where we are. And factors, dark, that process and everything else is you try and put that. So even if you're in an extreme environment, those are the things that trigger it. Sensory stuff, smells, familiarization, noise. There can be good noise and bad noise, and it works both ways. If you've been brought up in a city, you've just been hearing city noise all the time. Puts you in the leafy countryside, and it's like, oh, I don't like this. It's also if you're brought up in leafy countryside, and now you're sleeping inside a hotel in the side of the city, and there's lots of noise, that can be there. So it's just this nice relationship with you as a human being, those circadian rhythms, the things that trigger, knowing that your brain will not let you go into, we all know about the deeper sleep stages, the stuff we like, but all sleep stages are important to us, not just the deep sleep. But to actually roll into those deeper sleep stages, there's a lot of boxes got to be ticked. The brain, sleeping outside, the fear factor, the security, there's a lot of things got to be ticked for your brain to take you through those stages in a rhythmical pattern so that you get the benefits of the recovery when you wake. Because you're not in control of this. When you go to sleep, your brain's doing this. So it's everything you've done from the point of wake to when you present yourself to go into recovery. Now, hopefully, you've done as much as you can to allow the brain to take you through this lovely process, release all the different stages in the right quantities so that when you wake up, you're ready to go. And most of us don't have any sort of point of wake approach to point of sleep. We always concentrate on the last hour or something before we go into sleep, thinking that we're in control of it. We're not. We're not in control of it. Once you fall asleep, the brain takes over. There's nothing you can do about it. If it wants to wake you up, it'll wake you up. If your bladder's too full of fluids, it'll wake you up to go to the toilet. If you're thinking about too many things that's keeping it all anxiety, then you'll flick out of sleep. If you're too hot, it'll flick you out. If you've got partners getting in the way, if it hears noises it's not familiar with, then it'll keep you in a light sleep stage so you're ready to react. So all of those things are going on. So the real important part, as you've been talking about, is get a better relationship with circadian rhythms, your personal chronotype, your relationship with outside, the sun going around our planet, light, all that sort of stuff. Once you start bringing that into your world, there's no ideal. It's just more awareness means, right, I'm going to do that. I won't do that. I'll add that. I'll do this, tweak that. Little practical shifts, behavioral changes, tiny little ones that have no real impact, but you just shift it around here, there, and everywhere, and bang. When you fall asleep, whee, out it comes.
That's that's awesome. So much great information there for anyone looking to improve their sleep. It's really fascinating to hear you talk about how it's kind of sleep. Because I think a lot of people, a misconception is a lot of people will think that, like you say, sleep is about, if you want to sleep well, you just need to nail the last 2 hours before bed, for example. But it's actually, like you're saying, it's the whole process that takes place over the course of the whole day. So yeah, that's really great. Nick, I just wanted to wrap things up there, if that's okay. I just wondered, for anyone who's watching this and wants to hear more about your stuff and keep in touch with your work, where's the best place for people to find you?
The website, as always, it's sportsleepcoach.com. So sportsleepcoach.com. We have a range of very simple steps for people to get going, like a little Kickstarter for £5. They can access the book, from all great bookstores, or even listen to it on audiobook, which is another great start. You mentioned that. So we've got a few toolkits where people, they don't have to make it too serious. They could just make a step about raising their awareness in a nice, accessible way. So on there, we've got all sorts of services and access the book wherever. Predominantly Instagram as well as Twitter. We're always posting lots of free content. And it's not sort of like, get to bed, get your 8 hours, all that sort of stuff. It's specific to things about debunking some stuff, what we're experiencing every day. We're posting blogs on a regular basis, onto sites. There's stuff on YouTube. We do lots of short videos. So I think it's, that's the place for somebody to go. They can also see that we've got products, the products that we use with our athletes. So when we're talking about sleeping outside and mattresses and stuff, we've just got stuff. We're not a retailer like you would know retailers online, but we do manufacture and supply products to our athletes that probably would change your perception of sleeping to what elite athletes actually sleep on. But also things like breathing products, the human charger, light therapy tools. We don't actually sell them around, but if I like the product, if I use the product, I'm not endorsing the product, but we'll put it up on our website to provide some information. And if you like that approach, then you can go off to that company and purchase if you want. But so it's a place, and to be honest, we love questions and we love inquiries. So we're a very open and honest company. And if people have got questions about anything like that, we do our level best to try and give everybody answers to what they want to do. But that's a good place to go, is just get all our free content, and you'll get a big step from where you are now.
Awesome. Yeah, and if anyone's watching this on YouTube, I'll make sure those links are in the description below. Nick, thank you so much for your time. It was really fascinating to speak to you.
Okay.